Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. On this show, I try to have the important discussions. I try to think about, with myself, with my guests, what are the big picture issues that our country is facing. You probably notice I don't cover a lot of the day-to-day politics or the day-to-day stories that are trending on Twitter. I really try to focus on just having the sober conversations about where our country is headed, where it's going to be in 5 years, how our actions need to reflect potential outcomes that face our country. So right now, as we're looking ahead at the 2024 election, we've got our border wide open. We have terrorists flying across the border. We have events happening like the bridge collapse, which a lot of folks that I trust in my own gut tell me that was not some accident of some guy falling asleep. It was much more sinister. And so these events, unfortunately, I'm worried will only start escalating as we get closer to the 2024 presidential election, because there's one thing that we know, and it's that the deep state, what do you want, whether you want to call it the deep state, the globalists, the communists, the CCP, the WEF, et cetera, this giant apparatus that wants global control and that knows America is standing in the way of global control, they will do anything to make sure that their guy, whether it's Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom or Michelle Obama or whoever it is, that person will get into office, and it cannot be Trump, because they know that they don't control Trump, and that Trump will in fact start working on dismantling their apparatuses and dismantling this. And so the question that I'm really coming to a lot in my own thinking and reflection is, what's the inflection point? I mean, how many Americans have to wake up? And these Americans that are awake, what do we do? Because we don't want to just grab our guns and head out to protest somewhere, because it's opening up exactly what they want, some sort of false flag event where they can then have new excuses to bring in martial law or to come after our guns or whatever it is. I feel like that we're in this stalemate of us and more people waking up and seeing where the country's headed, but not knowing what to do about it. So joining us today is my good friend, and I think who's someone who's a super patriot, and that's General Flynn, General Michael Flynn. So he's going to be joining today, and I'm going to be asking him some of these questions and talking about what can we do. But he's also going to help break down, which I think is very interesting, his insight into what are the apparatuses that are actually controlling this country. We talk about the three columns, but he goes into the fourth column, the fifth column, the sixth column, and understanding how these columns are coordinating with these globalists and this corporatocracy to control America, and what we can do about that. Now, he's on a tour right now, so he's actually on his tour bus during the interview. Actually, I just finished it, and I'm doing the introduction afterwards, so I could help tell you this. And so there are a few areas where his service is not great. It's a little bit choppy. I apologize in advance. It's part of the reality of getting people like him with such a busy schedule to come on the show. He's not just sitting at home in a studio waiting for the next person to interview him. He's on the road. He's active. So we're going to do our best to edit it. We're not cutting anything out that is not just garbled. So there might be a few areas where you notice it cuts, maybe a sentence cuts off, but we'll try our best to edit it for you. Just know that we're not removing any content. We're not censoring anything that he's saying. It's just we're making it watchable for you, because we don't want to have you sit there through silence or broken information coming through because of his signal. So anyway, that's all, folks. I hope you really enjoy this interview, and I hope if you do enjoy it, you can share it. That's a big thing, is helping share this content, because I'm heavily blacklisted on the major social media, YouTube especially, which is really where content creators like myself grow, is on YouTube. Unfortunately for me, like, that growth is completely stopped because of my messages. So anyway, when you share, it really helps me out. So folks, please enjoy this interview with General Michael Flynn. Folks, I have a quick message for you. Look, the 2024 election is do or die for the globalists and communists that have infiltrated our country and are currently running it. And they either have to win, or they're going to destroy America so nothing is left either way. And if you're the person that's watching this show and following this information, unfortunately, you have the weight on your shoulders of making sure that your family is prepared, especially as we head into this next year and this next election cycle, because unfortunately, I think it's going to get rough. And one of the ways I know they're going to target us is through our food supply. You can see all the food factories burned down. You can see the warnings of coming famines and food shortages and everything like that. And food is one of the number one ways totalitarian regimes have always used to control the population, is destroy the food supply. So if you don't have at least 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months worth of stored food, I highly recommend you take that very seriously because, look, as I mentioned, if you're the person that's watching this, you're the person that carries the burden of making sure your family is prepared. I would recommend at least 6 months, if not a year, of storable food. So if things go haywire, whether it's grid down or terrorist attack from what's coming across the border, that your family can safely stay in place and you can feed your family. So, folks, today, go to heavensharvest.com and make sure you get your storable food that'll last for up to 25 years. Just in case things go south, you know that you have what's going to take to feed your family, which is so, so critical for us to get through this next stage of history. So go to heavensharvest.com today, order your food that'll last up to 25 years, and use promo code Seth to save 15% on your entire order. Again, that's heavensharvest.com and use promo code Seth, SETH, to save 15% on your entire order. General Flynn, it is always such an honor to have you on the program. Thank you so much for taking away time from your very busy schedule to be with us today. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely, Seth. And I actually enjoy coming on your show because I love the title "Man in America," but I also appreciate what you have created. You've created something that's really special, and I think your discourse and the kind of conversation that you promote I could come on every week. Right now I'm in right now I'm on a nationwide tour. It's you've been part of the Reawaken America tour with Play, and so I'm kind of doing a mini version of that, but I'm using my film, this film that we have out now. It's just an amazing film. Yeah, it's called Flynn Delivered the Truth, Whatever the Cost, and we're number one on Amazon. So and it's being shipped now, which is good, and also where it says you can own it now on Salem or iTunes. Go to iTunes and get the live streaming version. You can either rent or own, and we're number one on Amazon DVDs, all DVDs, which is really amazing. I mean, so we're beating the likes of Barbie and Oppenheimer, Aquaman, and Willy Wonka too. I think America has had enough sweets, right? America needs some meat, potatoes right now, right?
We need some cold hard truth is what we need.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and that's what you're here for. So, one thing, there's a lot we could talk about, but I want to make sure we're hitting the key issues that affect the future of this country. And one of the big ones is where we're at right now, heading into this election. Right, we know in 2020, we know that COVID, this massive apparatus was built to change our election laws to make sure they could steal the election in broad daylight. Here we are. It seems like this whatever pandemic they had, what isn't working. Yet we now have FBI putting out notices for potential terrorist attacks. We have terrorists, Chinese troops, et cetera, flooding across our southern border. So as we enter into this, what I think is the most critical and important election that this country has ever seen, in determining whether we end up like Venezuela or Soviet Union in a couple short years, or get back on track to being a great America again. What do you think is in the playbook? I mean, you've talked about black swan events. I mean, we look at the bridge, the collapse, a lot of what we're seeing happening. What do you think? What do you see happening over the next couple of months heading into this election that might be used to give the deep state cover to steal another election again?
Yeah. So a couple of things. First, I think to start off with the positive, what I see happening, Seth, and it's because of shows like yours, it's because of voices like mine, and many others who are rising to the occasion. And that's typical for Americans. Americans, we can be a cynical bunch, but at the end of the day, we love our freedom and we love our country. And I see, and I've gotten around this country a lot, and I've spoken to, I love people. I love speaking to people. I love interacting with people. Man, I'm going to tell you, there are so many Americans that are woken up and have awakened to the difficulties that we are facing, and that's a positive thing. I think that on the other side, what are the things that we might see? The bridge collapses, and again, not the bridge collapses. I still think seems to me like it's an intentional thing. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to get to the bottom of it until we get some legitimacy back in the White House, back into our law enforcement. I just cannot see something that tragic happening without some type of intention. I find that hard to believe. And I've been around a long time, and I've looked at a lot of different problem sets and studied these kinds of things. And I haven't seen anything that's told me clear accident, guy fell asleep literally at the switch, and it went like that, just turned the whole ship. And too many backup mechanisms to be able to prevent something like that. There's backups to backups to backups. So until there's bulletproof evidence that shows here's how it happened, and it's laid out, and the government's not going to do that for us. So let me put that in one case. The things that I think that the globalists are doing right now. There's a recent statement by Tedros out of the World Health Organization about kind of food we should be eating, and what kind of food they're going to be directing us to eat. Never mind disrupting and controlling the sovereignty of the United States of America for health decisions by our population. We're not a communist country. Tedros is a Marxist. I mean, people need to know that the director of the World Health Organization is a Marxist. And so, he's putting out things that will matter to every single American here, not like, 50 years from now, but literally in the next couple of months. I think it's at the end of May when the World Health Organization, all the signatories inside the UN, and there's probably, I don't know, I'm guessing a little bit, but there's north of 150 nations that have signed up to this thing. And I think the U.S. is still in the throes of signing up, will sign up to this allowance, and really the cost to our freedom, our health freedom, and health choices. Unless the House of Representatives steps in, but I just don't see that happening, because what we've learned about Speaker Mike Johnson, God, is he turned out to be a really weak man. And sad, probably a nice guy, but he's weak. That's number one. Health. Health impacts an entire society, like we saw with what you talked about up front, COVID. The second thing is an economic shift. We are clearly moving, and I think you and I have talked about this before. We're clearly moving toward a global currency shift, and they call it the central bank digital currency is the mechanism, right? That's the means, that's the path, using central banks. Every nation state has a central bank. The world has a world bank. There's also something called the International Monetary Fund. And these are the bodies that sort of set the pace for monetary value around the world. And, the BRICS nations, as we've spoken about, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, have a whole bunch of other signatories to their sort of rules. And those signatories are like, the number I heard the other day was like 87 more nations that are joining the BRICS alliance. That's, I hope that I misheard that. But, the BRICS nations, just those five, they represent almost half the population of the planet. These are big countries, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And they're a funny set of alliances, but they have very strong economic ties. And some of them inside of that alliance, they have military to military alliances. So, the Russians make a lot of the weaponry for the Indians, right? I mean, so there's all these different, sort of bedroom relationships, let's call them, around the world that most Americans don't know, and most Americans will say, well, hopefully our government is protecting our safety and our security. Well, I'm here to tell you that our government is involved with these nations and involved with these ideas and these policies, and because the current administration we have believes in globalism, they believe in climatism, okay, which is a belief of the climate and how the climate must change our lives. I joke about it, but the Plymouth Rock of whatever 1620, has been sitting at the edge of the water since 1620, and the ebb and tides of hundreds of years of water, the rock's still sitting there. So it's like when somebody goes, oh, all these things, that's all baloney. That's all. There's so much money, and I'm talking about billions, tens of billions of dollars tied up in all this climate nonsense, because these people that are globalists, they use it for their own ill-gotten goods and gain. And they have all these different foundations around the world that do nothing but steal the humanity from people all over the world. And they've been doing that for a long time. This is not just because Trump, because everybody goes Trump, the left goes Trump, bad, orange man bad. I mean, this is what people like you and I, others like you who have these brave, courageous voices out there, have to start to speak up and move away from these fake narratives that we have on our side. Right? We have a lot of fake narratives within our sort of movement, if you will, in the greater conservative patriotic movement. There's a lot of these crazy stories and fake things that because people have been psyoped, and anyway, but there's also a big fake narrative in the on this small body of the left, because they're not representative of America. They're only representative of a small slice of America. The majority of America don't want nonsense. Like I said before, they just want to be left alone. Let me take it a different path too, if you don't mind.
Please do.
And I want to address these columns, right? We talk about the fifth column, the fourth column. There's the United States of America was created by with three columns, right? Legislative, executive, and government, all the way down, from the federal government down to the states, and even to a degree in some of local politics, right? We have a city mayor, you got a council, you've got your like structure actually, and most of the rest of the world doesn't want to even understand it, but it's the best system in human history. So what has been created in the past 50 years, if not longer, but certainly the past 50 years, has been these other columns. One of them is the media, right? So the column of the media, you can call it fourth column, fifth column, probably fifth. That's probably, I'll make them the fifth, because I'm going to talk about the fourth here in a second. The fifth column, let's just say the media is the fifth column, and they have power and they have influence, and if they are coordinating, in what we call the Mockingbird media, then that has a lot of influence. And if they keep beating that drum, then people begin to believe it. Well, let me take a step back to the fourth column, which is the deep state, right? And we say the deep state. These are the bureaucrats within government. These are the agencies, activities. Some of these people are appointees. I mean, some are appointed. Some of them were appointed under Trump because they needed. People that the establishment, the Republican establishment, they wanted to keep things the way they were. So they would tell Trump, okay, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of, State, okay, we'll make sure that you have this chance to pick them, or you're going to meet them. We're going to tell you who you're going to take. And because Trump doesn't, what's he going to do? Go back to, the holiday. He's going to go back to whatever the real estate market and start grabbing a few people. He actually did bring a one or two in that I got to know, and they were actually very good people. But the majority of people around him were established, and there's establishment figures that are appointed, and they live in Washington or in that circle, that swirl, and they just keep going back and forth to some corporation or some law firm that when they're not in power, and then when they are in power, they come back and they operate in the government. And there's that column. That's the deep state. Those are the people. And there are, there's names that we can associate them, but I kind of see that as the fourth state, the fifth column, the fourth column, and then the fifth column is the media. the sixth column is really Hollywood, and now Hollywood and the way that and Hollywood's big. It's not just Hollywood Los Angeles. There's Hollywood Atlanta, Hollywood New York. There's international, but Hollywood has a different set of owners these days, much different than they were 60 years ago. When we used Hollywood to develop propaganda to win the war against Nazism and imperialism. And so this description of this fourth, fifth, and sixth columns, there is a collusion effect that has now we now see, right? And that collusion effect, so they're colluding with each other, and what they're doing is they're colluding with other elements inside of the government, and some of those elements are in the legislative branch, as an example. So, because we ask questions like, well, why doesn't if the House of Representatives is run by the conservatives, by the Republican Party, why don't they fall into Hunter Biden? Well, they did, and Hunter Biden, gave him the Italian salute. So, okay, why don't they hold Hunter in contempt? They have yet to do that, but Peter Navarro is now sitting in a prison right now for 4 months because the Democrats held him in contempt and DOJ prosecuted him, and now he's in jail. Now he's in prison for doing something that is a executive privilege, for protecting executive privilege. And I think the Supreme Court's going to uphold that, but sadly, he's got to sit in federal prison for 4 months while we await that appeal. And this is unbelievable. Our system of government right now is flawless. But that's an example of how these columns collude with each other. There's actually another, and this is kind of how our country has started to structure itself, because the American people lost sight of what was happening. They just kind of let it happen. We let it happen. We kept voting in the same people, and the same people, it's like, why isn't Congress holding him in contempt? Because there's people stuck in the pockets of these members of Congress, all of them. There's a few maybe that you can say that this gal's good, but going on, some news channel to spout their feelings and then going back to Congress and doing nothing is not working anymore for us. We the people, we're getting tired of. So this other element, is I call it, and we've read about this in the book Fifth Generation Warfare. It's this corporatocracy, right? The corporatocracy and institutions, and the institutions in this case can be academic institutions, colleges and universities, certainly the big corporations, the big banks. So again, all of this fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, these components, they all kind of sit above whoever's in the White House, whoever's running Congress. And frankly, for the judiciary, you really want to believe that all judges are unbiased and fine. They're not. And they're appointed and then they're confirmed for those that are on the federal bench. And somebody that's why we always go, well, who's the judge? Is he a Obama appointee? Is he a Bush appointee? Is he a Clinton appointee? Is it Reagan? Whatever. Everybody wants to know who appointed that. And why do we act like that? Why do we ask that question? Because, it's like, okay, maybe they're going to be on our side, right? And so we shouldn't be doing that with judges. The judge should be picked because their decision making in their time as a judge, or even their demonstrated time as a prosecutor, as a great lawyer, has been somebody who's been seen as so incredibly fair in the outcomes and consequences of their decision. And we don't have that right now. It's not in total, but it is clearly. It's more clear today than it ever was, and I think every American sees that. If I can sort of shamelessly talk about the movie, because the movie does touch on some of these issues. Okay, I think people at what they actually experience in this movie. I think people coming in fact, we've been talking to people, asking them, is your expectation coming in? And their expectation is, that they're going to see, me whining about, woe is me. and that's just the opposite. It's about really fighting for this country and laying out in very clear, unadulterated, reality, pleading guilty. Right? It's just a big deal. People that watch it will meet members of my family who are blunt and like I am, and I said, the bigger message is not about all of the bad things that happen. The bigger message is about, what do we do about it, right? How do we fight back? So, if I'm one of a large number of children, if the Flynn's can stand our ground, figure a way out of this, survive, and stand up and fight back and win, so can America. That's the big message in the movie. And I really think people need to go see it. I mean, universally, the 5 cities that we have been to, I'm honored to have shown this to. And now we're up to about 15 or maybe 1,600 people in 5 cities. Pretty good turnout in theater-sized places. I mean, we'd have gotten bigger places if I thought we were going to have this kind of a turnout. Universally, people are watching it and saying, "Oh my God!" And then everybody needs to see it. I'm not saying that because I want more and more people to see it. People can go see it if they want, but I'm saying it because there's a statement in this movie that I'm trying to make to America to say, "Hey, look, we're in trouble. I have lived it, and I have found a way to back to America can do it."
Hey folks, I've got a quick message for you. So I'm sure you've heard a lot of people, myself included, talking about the importance of buying precious metals, gold and silver. But what's really behind that? Is just a thing of, hey, buy this gold, buy this silver, right? Or is there something deeper that we should be looking at? So I recently came across some figures about house prices. So in 1930, the average family home was approximately $4,000. Fast forward to 2023, the average family home is just over $400,000. So you have to ask yourself, why is that? Is it because things have just gotten more expensive? No, it's actually because the dollar has lost 99% of its value since 1930, right? When people talk about the collapse of the dollar or inflation, this is what it means. Now, let's take a look at gold. So in 1930, if you wanted to purchase your home in gold, it would take approximately 200 gold coins. So 200 gold coins would purchase the average family home in 1930, about $4,000. Now, if you, instead of buying a home with that gold or cash, you set those aside. If you set aside $4,000 in cash in 1930, it would be worth $4,000 today. What can you buy with $4,000? Can you buy a family home? No, you can't even buy a crappy used car. But if you set aside $4,000 worth of gold coins in 1930, which is 200 gold coins, 1 ounce coins, that would be worth approximately $400,000 today. And this is the key lesson about precious metals. It's not about getting rich. It's about putting your money into an asset that protects you against inflation and against the destruction of the currency, which is what happens to all fiat currencies, especially now we're in the end days of the dollar. And so that's why it's important, maybe not all of your money, but a portion of your money, a portion of what you have, I highly recommend putting it into precious metals of gold and silver, because what it's doing is it's protecting you. This is an asset that has stood the test of time, not just stood the test of time since the 1930s. We're talking about the rise and fall of civilizations. Gold was used to buy houses back in ancient Rome. It's still around. It's an asset that will forever have its value. So folks, if you want to do this and you need someone that you can trust, there's no person I can recommend more than Dr. Kirk Elliott. He's a very good friend of mine. He's a strong Christian patriot, and he's out to really help people to protect their savings and what you've worked for against the destruction of the dollar, not to mention also protecting it against the dangers of central bank digital currencies. So to learn more about this, go to goldwithseth.com, or call 720-605-3900. Again, that's goldwithseth.com or 720-605-3900. Both those places will allow you to set up a quick appointment where you can talk to a wealth advisor that will help get you started on this path. Again, goldwithseth.com, 720-605-3900.
It's the bigger message. That's the part that we lose sight of. Because we wring our hands and we worry about all of what they are doing, what the left is doing, what Congress is doing, instead of saying, what am I doing? What I, as an American citizen, right? And if it's for your audience, I probably should have said this earlier. Looks like I'm bouncing around, Seth. I am. We're in an RV driving down a backcountry road in Missouri, head to Branson, and feels like I'm on a speedboat on choppy water. It's really something.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
One question I have, and this is something that is I don't understand how to accomplish this, is that you talk about these 6 columns, right? Obviously 3 columns, and you've got media, corporatocracy, the deep state. Obviously, big tech fits into those as probably corporatocracy. What we have is this behemoth. It's not just a bloated federal government. It's now a merger of our federal government being controlled by massive global companies, corporations, powers that have almost unlimited money. I mean, it seems insurmountable, and yet you started off talking about how what you're seeing, which I agree, I'm seeing too. The American people are waking up, and we've had enough of this. But what do you see as what's the inflection point? Obviously, we have our Second Amendment to protect ourselves from tyrannical government, and we don't want to get into some sort of martial law or some sort of violent situation because it gives them every excuse to come in and do all kinds of terrible things. But it's almost like it feels like we're at a stalemate because all these people are waking up, yet we can't go to the ballot box and vote somebody out. Look at what happened in 2020. Look at what happened in the midterms. And we can hope for the best in 2024 election, but we see how much they're controlling that. And so I think a lot of Americans also look at what happened January 6th. They've been discouraged from large scale gatherings for concern of false flags and FBI targeting them, et cetera. So what's the point? Where's the nexus at this, where there's the showdown where enough people can do X, whatever that is, to finally help get rid of this massive deep state, global, satanic, whatever it is that's trying to destroy America? I can't see the path forward as much as I'm trying to.
Yeah, I know, and I think that in my conversations with many Americans, we all kind of feel the same way. That it's like, okay, so, I don't trust our election system as an example. Many people, thousands of people have told me that. And so when I say, you got to get out and vote, I tell people, you got to get out and vote. We got to get more people out and vote. And then they're going, okay, I can do that. I understand that, but I don't trust our election system. I don't trust that it's going to be a fair outcome. And that's a shame, because our country is based on that one right path, which is that right to vote. And that makes us all equal on that day, right? Richest and poorest are equal in the voting booth of America. And so if people feel like, geez, my vote doesn't count, so what I don't want, at least number one, I don't want people to feel that way, that your vote doesn't count, and then decide I'm not going to go vote, right? Well, I think more and more people have to go grab somebody, and we have to overwhelm it. Maybe if it is rigged, and there's clear evidence that there's some rigging going on, there's fraud going on. I'm not. They'll call me an election denier. I don't deny that we have elections. I just deny that they're free and fair, because there's plenty of evidence that shows that. So, but still, if we only have like 60% turnout in a presidential election, I think the 2020 presidential election, even which was a huge turnout, but still only like, I think it was 65, maybe 66% turnout. He said like 30% of the registered voters in this country are turned off, or they're tuned out. And they can't do that. You cannot do that. People can't say, I don't do that politics thing, and then go down to the store to buy a gallon of milk or fill up their gas tank and complain, right? I mean, because the price. I mean, it just that those things don't match. And what clearly doesn't match is the fact that what people have sacrificed for this country for us to be able to speak freely like we're speaking right now. And I agree with you that nobody wants to go down the path of any kind of craziness in this country, violence or anything. We don't want that. We definitely don't want that. We don't want to see that. We don't want to be talking like that. I do think that there are elements in our country that would try to strike some match to cause something. And I can see that scenario. But I think the greater responsibility for any citizen is to participate in the citizenry that we have as a free, it's still a free nation of Americans. And if we don't do that, we don't take that sort of citizen's responsibility and serve, and I mean serve in some capacity, then it's a shame. And maybe we deserve to lose the country. Maybe this is the end of the American dream, the American empire, right? I mean, that's the fact of nation states over the history of the world. The rise and fall of those nation states. That the Roman Empire doesn't exist anymore. The Athenian Empire, the Mesopotamian Empire, the British Empire, the Ottoman Empire. These empires don't exist anymore. I mean, when you look at the situation in the Middle East and parts of Africa, parts of Europe, even in England, and maybe you can even see it to a degree here. The Ottoman Empire was one of the longest serving empires in the history of the world. And it's not well coordinated. Well, it seems that seems to be rising again. And does that mean that I'm trying to pit, Islam against the rest of the world? No, I've written a book about it. That's actually a national bestseller called The Field of Fight. And I've talked about this issue because it's an important one for people to understand, because it has to do with global demographics, global geography, and the mix of cultures in various societies around the planet. It's a fascinating book. I wrote it back in 2016, and it as current today as I wrote it as it was when I wrote it in 2016. That's called The Field of Fight. I don't have it on my website right now. You got to go to. I'm not even sure where you buy it. Go to Amazon. Buy it if somebody wants to read it. But we're in a period of history, U.S. history for sure, and sort of global history in general, because of this rise of globalism. So in other eras of history, we've had imperialism, Nazism, communism, Islamism, all the isms, and now it's globalism. And it's a belief in this idea that the world can be run by one body, as George Bush, right? Not Barack Obama. Barack Obama is one of the things really is important. But George Bush, the father, the president of the United States, called out the New World Order, not in a negative, he was calling it out as though saying we need to become part of it. I mean, there is an establishment in the political lifeblood of the United States of America that believes in this garbage. And it doesn't mean that we don't adhere to rules and norms of world, like laws that should be internationally accepted laws, especially when it comes to humanity and freedom and rights, human rights. But you can still maintain your sovereignty. And there are people in our current government, and I know this to be true, that are in very critical positions, very key positions. They want to give up our sovereign rights to this globalist new world order. And this has been going on for a long time. That's why the harshness of the 2020 election and what they're taking Donald Trump through, it's not a game. It's not, there's nobody, like I've heard in our move, there's no white hats, and there's no crazy, that kind of stuff is insane. That is crazy. people that say that, that there's some plan out there. They're out of their minds. This is the reality that we're facing. And we're like a third world nation, treating somebody who's very popular, who's the leading candidate in one of the major parties for president of the United States, was the president of the United States, and he's being persecuted like he's a third world dictator. So, I want Americans to focus on the positive. I want Americans to focus on what can they do, what should they do, and I think that's the sound of victory for America. And I do believe, traveling across this country, and I've done this a couple of times. I've been all over this country a couple of times certainly the last three and a half years, and we're doing it again. We're gonna visit, I think, 42 states, 35 cities. But every place we stop, we chat with people in the gas stations and stores, where we're sitting down eating food. Some of the restaurants along the highway, and everybody that recognized me and we talked, they're like, they're very thankful on one hand, but on the other hand, they're like, they're some cases scared, some cases just concerned, and they're asking, what can we do? What can we do? And the best advice I can give them is to do more than whatever you are. Okay? I appreciate people's hard work, appreciate people taking care of their families, but now in these next 200 and whatever 20 days, 5 days, so in this next few months, you're going to have to do more. You're going to have to do more if we think we're going to win this country back and get ourselves back on the rails. Except right now, America is off the rails. No doubt about it. But we can get back on the rails with the right leaders, the right leadership, the right direction, the right purpose. And that's what leaders do. They give direction, they give purpose, and they give inspiration and hope. And that's what we need right now. We need that from the leaders that we have. We don't get that out of the White House. God, it's like they're trying to crush our soul. And they work with all these other columns that I talked about. So anyway.
Such important points. And I think one thing just to throw in there is I think just changing our habits and our patterns and resisting and not complying. So if you look at the media, which you mentioned, like the media, say 5 years ago, had a significant spell cast on the American population. People were tuning in to CNN or Fox or whatever it is that was part of that apparatus every night to be fed whatever brainwashing that they were going to be given that night. And if you look at what's happened, especially since 2020 in the past couple of years, as more people have stopped watching the media, you're seeing these media shut down, right? So these fifth column or these six columns that they're controlling, some of these columns derive their power from us our active participation. And so even like this show is in one way, it's a way of building a parallel column. It's building a column that represents a righteous and upright media that tells people the truth and asks the hard questions and isn't controlled by corporatocracy and controlled by evil intentions. And so that's is an example of a simple thing people can do is turn off the TV, share these kinds of shows, your film, get this information out, because I also believe I do have hope. And I believe, though, that a lot of it comes from people actually just saying, I'm not going to participate anymore. I'm not going to be part of your system anymore.
Exactly. I'm not going to buy something from your store. I'm not, exactly. I mean, this parallel universe that is being created, and this is the unique quality of America, is the idea of innovation. There's no other people on the planet that, as a nation, that are as innovative as Americans are. I mean, Americans, like, you got some issue that happens, it's like, oh, let's figure out how to fix it. I mean, we're just that's kind of our way. And so, I can't tell you when. You could spend years that I have turned on a news station or my TV to watch something. I mean, that watch something that was like, one of these shows, right? Like they Netflix. I don't think I turned on Netflix. I don't know when. What do I do? What am I? My wife and I do. We like movies. We'll watch a movie together, and but we're not watching like the movies that you think. We're watching we're watching movies that matter. And I really and I love history. I love I love reality. I love stories that are based on true stories. And I think that there's a hunger for, just honesty, authenticity, and truth. Not no holds barred conversations. Those are good too sometimes. They can wear you out.
Folks, perhaps you'd agree with me when I say that over the past 5 years, the mainstream healthcare system's credibility has plummeted. Alternative healthcare systems that aren't beholden to medical consensus or big pharma are on the rise. Sweetamine is time tested and proven to boost your life with better health. It's one of the leading products that helps with inflammation and daily aches and pains. Just because you get older, it doesn't mean that you have to feel old. And folks, did you know that most of the diseases that make people sick and die these days are rooted in chronic inflammation, oftentimes due to glycine deficiency? So, sweetamine is composed mainly of the amino acid glycine, the nutrient that the immune system uses to regulate inflammation. So, with once daily sweetamine, most people feel the reduction in pain after just a few days. So, I challenge you to the 12-day sweetamine challenge to fight inflammation and take control of your health today. So, folks, buy sweetamine online at sweetamine.com or call 855-GET-SWEET. That's 855-438-7933, and make sure you use promo code SETH, SETH, to get a nice discount on your purchase.
You got some issue that happens. It's like, well, let's figure out how to fix it. I mean, we're just that's kind of our way. And so, I can't tell you when. You could spend years that I have turned on a news station or my TV to watch something. I mean, that watch something that was like, one of these shows, right? They Netflix. I don't think I turned on Netflix. I don't know when. What do I do? What am I? My wife and I do. We like movies. We'll watch a movie together, and but we're not watching like, the movies that you think. We're watching we're watching movies that matter. And I love history. I love reality. I love stories that are based on true stories. And I think that there's a hunger for, just honesty, authenticity, and truth. Not no holds barred conversations. Those are good too sometimes. They can wear you out. But I think that there's a strong desire for just listening to people who somebody trusts and says, Seth, I trust you. I'm going to be a loyal member of your audience. You bring on good people, or the kinds of things you're talking about are things that are clearly affecting me. And so we're going to listen to you. And I can listen to you. See, I don't have to go to my house and turn on, channel whatever for all the major networks or for the cable network. I can take this podcast. I can go use my phone while I'm driving down this highway and just listen to it. Right? I can just listen to it. I don't even need to watch the video. I can just listen and listen to this conversation that General Flynn and Seth Holhouse are having and about Man in America. That's the nice thing about it. And you might post this every day at, I don't know, you might post it every day at 4:00 Eastern time. I can listen to it at midnight tonight. I can listen to it when I want. And guess what? That's an American thing, right? It's freedom to be able to do it and listen to the things that I want to listen to, whether you like it or not, right? And I can listen to them when I want to listen to them. And the more you give me that opportunity, the more I'm going to make that decision to, oh yeah, listen to Seth. I talk to people that when I say, yeah, I was just recently on Seth Holhouse, I'll say it tonight. And we're at France. People are going to go, oh yeah, I love him. I love him. And, if I asked them, well, when do you watch him? If they said, they're probably not going to say, oh, I watch him every day at 3:00. Or I sit on my couch every night at 6:00, and like we used to. There, and that used to business is going out of business because they cannot get hold of the heart of America because they don't understand it, because they spew the swirl of talking points that comes out of places like New York, places like Washington, D.C., places like Hollywood. That's what they do. And they just can't come to grips with that. And that's why, there's people like you. That's like Tucker Carlson, who actually was in the movie. plays a prominent role in the movie. And it's the rise of these voices that have said enough is enough, and I'm going to go do my own thing. And you get a nice background like you've got. You produce your show. You got your there, and you're you're probably sitting in a souped up garage that you put together, or a nice room, some extra room in your house. I mean, I have one in my house. I have one in like a little tiny study that I have in my home, and I've created one. And here I am on a laptop talking to you. I'm on the highway, heading to Branson, Missouri. And, I mean, this is the power of freedom. This is not just the power of the internet. This is the power of creating something that we the people want to create. I will tell you, you can't do this in other countries on the planet. There's many, many other countries you can't have this kind of a dialogue. I mean, earlier, talked about Brazil. I mean, you can't do this. You start to talk like this in some other countries around the planet, and they'll crush you. They'll shut you down. They will throw you in prison. We don't want that to happen in our country. Right? We don't want that to happen in America. We want to be able to just continue to have this kind of dialogue, and so whoever, and I really think that we do need a massive change. And I think that I'll just say that I'm for Donald J. Trump to be the next president of the United States. But this is bigger than Trump too. He knows it. He knows it now. This is bigger than him. Much, much bigger. This is now the future of our country. And Trump realized, I think he realizes it more than he ever did in the early days of 2016 when I was with him on the campaign. And then, of course, going into the White House for a short time as his national security advisor. And I talk about that in the movies quite a bit. Now, I don't think that he realized the danger that our country has turned toward, and now he does. I know he does now, but there's still a challenge when you're at that level. And I learned this is in being in big organizations, leading big organizations. There's always people that want to tell you what they think you want to hear, not what you need to hear, right? And that's kind of the establishment message. The establishment is going to say, "Here's what you need to do, Mr. President. Here's what you need to do, Don." And that's the establishment, because they're trying to maintain something that it's power. They don't want to give up on it. Whereas instead of having somebody like, if a guy like me or other Americans come in there and go, "Hey, you ain't wearing no clothes today, right? What you just did, or what you need is that you need to do this, and whatever that is, right?" And if he goes, "Wait a second, I don't know about that." No, this is what you need. Now, you decide to do something different. That's fine. That's you. You're the president, right? You're going to make the decision. But this is what you need to do, and it's going to piss off a whole bunch of people. It's going to make a whole bunch of people in the establishment, both sides, all sides, kind of really upset. It's going to upset the military-industrial complex. It's going to upset the censorship complex. It's going to upset the security state complex with all these intelligence community agencies and activities. It's going to upset all that. But you know what, Mr. President? That's the right thing to do. And that's what he needs. And he needs more of those type of people around him than I think what he had in certainly his first term. He knows that now.
That's encouraging. It's encouraging. I know that you've got a call coming up, so I want to be mindful of your time. Yeah. Before we sign off, though, I'll pull up your website one more time. I'll put the link in the description to the show, flynnmovie.com. I encourage people to go watch it today, buy it, download it, rent it, and also to get those sales up. And if you're watching it, say on iTunes or whatever, leave a review, give it 5 stars. That's always going to help. General Flynn, it's always an honor to have you on the show. I know you're a very busy man. I appreciate you making time for me and for our audience. I thank you for what you're doing, and I look forward to speaking to you next time. And I encourage people to, again, check out your movie, find ways to follow what you're doing, because I think that you're leading a really important movement and with your actions. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Absolutely, Seth. I'm honored, always honored to be on with you. I've come to really appreciate you, and I like you, and you're a type of person that's, it's like, where you know who you are, and that's a really defining characteristic for as an example for many others. I mean, there's people out there that are just still struggling to figure out who they are. How you know they want others to define them. No, define yourself, and I think that you have done that in spades, and that's why I so appreciate your message and your audience too. So God bless you. Talk to you later, and thanks very much for all that you do. Okay.
Absolutely. Take care and God bless. Folks, at the very heart of our democracy lies a principle we hold sacred: free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every freedom we cherish. Yet, in today's digital age, discussions about our wealth, our rights, and our future are being silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many feeling voiceless in conversations crucial to our financial independence and security. This is where wealth protection research steps in, armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research is not a financial advisory firm. They're defenders of free speech committed to giving a voice to the silenced. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of the 2024 election. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 Election Wealth Protection Report. This free report highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election. It contains ideas the mainstream media won't even touch, and listeners can get it completely free. So text IDEAS to 76626 to claim your free copy. If you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, then act now. So text IDEAS to 76626 to claim your free copy of this 2024 Election Protection Report. It's time to widen the scope of what we're told, to hear the ideas the establishment does not think you can handle, and to take control of our financial destinies. So folks, today, text IDEAS to 76626 to claim your free copy.